Okay, in this section we're going to look at inequalities. And just remember that an inequality looks like just an equation, and except in the place of the equal sign, we use one of these symbols here. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. So these equations are solved exactly the same, or these inequalities, I should say, are solved exactly the same as you do equations. The same rules apply. The only difference is when you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you must reverse the inequality symbol. So that means, if it's less than, you reverse it to greater than, only when multiplying or dividing by a negative. So before we get into solving these equations, we want to first look at the ways to identify our solution to the inequality. So one way is by using symbols. Okay, symbols that the less than, the greater than, the less than or equal to, and the greater than or equal to. Those symbols. Number line is just a old-fashioned number line with a number on it. And interval notation looks something like this. Parentheses with numbers in between. For example, 1 to 3 or 2 to infinity. Also, we can look at using brackets, which also can be between two numbers, or a combination of the two. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So we want to look at, when do we use parentheses for interval notation, when do we use brackets. And the basic rule for when we want to write in any solution to an inequality using interval notation and graphing is whether it's greater than or equal to, or just greater than or less than, or something like that. So for this one here, x is greater than 3. If I look at it on a number line, what I do is I identify the 3, and since my solutions are greater than 3, it's to the right. The difference here is, do we identify it with the bracket or the parentheses? And being that it includes the 3, we use the bracket. Point the arrow to the right, and that shows our solution. So we kind of take the solution from the number line and we turn it into our interval notation. We put the smaller number first. Since it includes the 3, we use the bracket. We make the infinity symbol, which is like a sideways 8, and we close it with a parentheses. The reason why we close it with a parentheses is that infinity has no end. So parentheses are open-ended interval symbols and brackets are closed-ended. So let's look at the next one. X is less than negative 2 would be our solution. So we go to negative 2 on the number line. Here we would use a parentheses, an arrow to the left, because it's less than negative 2. So when we transfer this to interval notation, we're going to use parentheses, and we always want to list the smaller number first, which is negative infinity, because see, negative infinity is to the left of our numbers and positive infinity is to the right. So we list it as going from negative infinity up to negative 2, but remember, it does not include negative 2. Last way is if we have a solution between two numbers. So here I have my solution is between negative 1 and 5. It's greater than negative 1, but it's less than or equal to 5. This is a compound inequality. Nothing really changes, except now we do have a beginning point and an end point, and it's just between these two numbers here. So to put that in interval notation, we always list the smaller number first and we use our correct symbols. So, when we're doing solutions using interval notation, that's kind of how you do it. The thing about interval notation is sometimes it looks like coordinates or points that we talk about in graphing. So it can get a little confusing at times when you have like a compound inequality and both of them are parentheses. Sometimes we think they're points, but just try to remember the difference. We can use these parentheses for points or for intervals. So just try to understand the difference between the two. Now, when we're solving inequalities, we treat it exactly the same way we do as an equation. So in this case, I'm going to get my x's on one side by subtracting 9x from both sides. Then I simplify. Now I divide both sides by -6. But when I divide by that negative, I reverse that inequality symbol. So x is greater than -4/6, but I'm going to reduce that to -2/3. On a number line, we would put down -2/3. We would use our parentheses because it is not including it. Keep in mind that on this side of the number line is infinity. So then therefore, using interval notation, it would look like that. So just kind of keep in mind, reverse that inequality only when we are multiplying or dividing by a negative, and then list your solution on the number line, and then using the interval notation. Now, this type of inequality here is a compound inequality, and if I had to say there's one topic, for our exam or in this first exam that gets missed a lot, it's this one, because students like to start from one side or the other, but think about where the expression with the x is. It's in between here, so we always want to work from the middle. So if I want to get the x by itself here, think about I got to get rid of this subtraction of 2 and the multiplication of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 to the middle part, but then I've also got to add 2 to the left and to the right. So I add 2 to all 3 locations. Simplify. Then I'm going to divide everything by 3. Simplify again. And then we have our solution. So x is greater than or equal to 2, but less than 5. And that's the other way you interpret this. You always want to kind of read these like from the center, because we're talking about our solution, and our solution is greater than or equal to 2, because see, the symbol is open towards the x. The mouth always opens to the most, if you want to look at it that way, and less than 5. So that is our symbols for our number line. We would use bracket and parentheses. And then for our interval notation, we just copy that down from the graph. So that is your section on inequalities. Hopefully you understand it, and we'll go over more in class.